Hello and welcome back to Higher Maths, Graphs and Functions. We are looking at the range of a function. So the range is basically the output numbers or the answers you get after substituting in. So for f of x equals x squared, for example, the numbers we put in, the input numbers, the values of x that we substitute in, that is the domain. And we could substitute any value of x in there, so there's no restriction on the domain. There's no value x can't take. And the output numbers, or what we get when we square x, that is called the range of the function. All the possible values would be the range of the function. So looking at the graph of y equals x squared here, as we can see, it would never ever take a negative value for y. So we could have 0 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So the range would be stated as f of x is greater than or equal to 0. So basically 0 or above. And the range also depends on the choice of domain. So I said there that x could be anything if there is a restriction on the domain. So for example, if we're just looking at x is greater than or equal to 3, so only looking at values of x of 3 or more, then the range would be f of x is greater than or equal to 9, because if we do 3 squared, we get 9. If we do any value larger than 3 and square it, would get more than 9. So all the possible values that f of x could take would be 9 or more. So f of x is greater than or equal to 9. So let's look at a couple of examples. Function f is defined by f of x equals sine x. Identify its range. So remember, guys, the range is the values of y. If we're thinking about the graph, it's the value of y. So a quick sketch of the sine graph. So it goes up to 1, back to 0, down to negative 1, back to 0, up to 1, down to 0, down to negative 1, back to 0, up to 1. So it's always between, the y coordinates are always between negative 1 and 1. So the range would be f of x is an element of R, so it could be any real number as long as f of x is greater than or equal to negative 1 and also less than or equal to 1. So if we're looking for a value between two numbers, that is how we set it out. Greater than or equal to the smaller of the numbers, less than or equal to the higher of the numbers. 2b, a function g is defined by g of x equals 2 brackets squared minus 3. Identify the range. So what I would do here, I would just make a quick sketch of this. So using our functions and graphs and transformation of graphs knowledge, this will stretch by y equals x squared by a factor of 2. This will move y equals x squared 1 to the right. This will move y equals x squared down by 3. So because part of the question is not asking me to sketch it, I'm not going to bother with the y-intercept. But basically, y equals x squared would come down here, as we all know. So moving along 1, down 3. Positive coefficient of bracket squared. It's still a positive number. So it's going to be a smiley face parabola. And there we have the sketch. So what values can y take here? Well, this is the minimum turning point and the y coordinates negative 3. So it could be negative 3 or above. So the range is g of x is an element of R, so any real number. G of x can take any real number, but g of x must be greater than or equal to negative 3. And that is everything on range of a function, so go and have a go at the questions.